All right, here we are, folks. Shari and Tracy and Brad and Brian. I watched your conversation with Paul Vander Klay, and for some reason, I was really inspired by it. Firstly, I think conversations amongst siblings are some of the most interesting to watch because there's I don't know how to put this, but in God's family, we're all siblings, right? But we have a special dynamic with those that we actually are siblings with. And somehow I think there's a potential there to model the kind of sibling that we should be in God's family, or are actually. So we don't always get along. We have, infighting and jealousy, and but there's a lot of grace, hopefully, for each other in families. So that's why I was interested. I'm also very interested in the whole phenomenon that I see in the world today that I didn't actually grow up with, which is this feeling of really being polarized from one another. And I've seen it in families. It hasn't happened in my family, like with my siblings, not for political reasons or any of that, religious reasons, but I've seen it happen in my husband's family and other people's families, and it's really perplexing to me how something like that can happen. So I sent you guys an email, and I just got to find it here. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. And I sent some questions as, maybe conversation starters. But maybe I'll just read some of the email that I sent. I would like to pursue a line of thinking that could be beneficial to anyone who listens to the conversation. The problem of ideological and political polarity is rampant in families today. And I would say ideological, like religious differences, also fit into the ideological subcategory for me. And it's really something that breaks my heart. Some of the questions I would like to explore are: why do we think that ideas matter so much? How do we deal with priorities as Christians? Does morality matter to God? Is morality the right approach? What are the hierarchies of values that we possess, and how do they differ with the hierarchy of value presented to us in the Gospels? And when I say we possess, I would, we're all going to have different values individually, but I think that there are values out there floating around. We hear a lot of, we happen to have Mark Carney as a prime minister, so he talks a lot about values. And then I sent you guys Matthew chapter 7, which is part of the Sermon on the Mount, which maybe we'll get to reading. So I thought we could try to tackle the conversation with those as starters. And I also sent you the Castle by George MacDonald. I don't know if anybody got a chance to listen to it. Mm-hmm.
Not much, but a little.
A little? Okay.
A little.
I mean, it wasn't like an absolute necessity, but I just thought it would really contribute to the conversation because it's such a great story. Maybe I'll just start with a brief description of the story, Brian, for your sake.
Yes.
How does that sound? So there's a castle, and this castle is built on like I get the image of a cliff on the edge of a lake, right? But it's kind of like projecting itself up out of the stone of this cliff. But the castle's not always visible. Parts of the castle are always covered in mist, so you can't always see the whole castle. Nobody has any idea how big it is and what it looks like as a whole, okay? And there's a family living in the castle. castle. They're all siblings. And he gives like brief descriptors of some of the siblings, what they're like. And there's an older brother and an older sister in the castle. And the father is absent. So he isn't there. And the siblings, you know, they run all the way down to, you know, the older brother. And there's hundreds of them, okay, in this castle. I don't know how long the father's been gone, but and there's no mother either that we know of. And they're waiting for the father to return. There are some limitations to things they can do in the castle. There's a room in the castle that they're not supposed to use. It's for the father's use only. And I'm trying to keep this as brief as possible. And they end up at one point, they break that covenant, let's say, and they decide to have a party and just invite everybody in the surrounding countryside. And they make flyers and they kind of throw them around willy-nilly. And they invite all these people to have a party in the Great Hall that they're not supposed to use because that's kept for the father alone. And in order to do that, they have to bind up the older brother because he's kind of he's the authoritarian in the house. And they don't like him very much because the way he speaks to them, even though his tone has never changed, it feels more and more like he's always just telling them what to do. And they're kind of getting tired of it. So they bind him up and they take him down into the cellars and they bind him to the wall with a chain and leave him there. And they have this big party. And while they're partying, a huge storm breaks out. And the windows blow open and all their silly decorations are blown around and they get wet. And then they hear this crash and thunder and lightning. And suddenly the brother appears. So he was freed from his chains and he comes up from the cellar and they all repent, so to speak. They're ashamed, you know, all the visitors flee. And the brother lets them lay there on their faces for a while, and then he tells them to get up. It's enough. And he says, just leave the windows open, and the wind and the rain will cleanse the room, right? And so then they have to make their way back as a family, right? They have to come back into relationship with the brother. And there's also the older sister. I'm just going to leave her out of this telling for now, because I think she has a different role, and it's kind of hard to understand. But and as they move more quietly around each other and carefully around the brother, the mood begins to change. And first of all, they start to take more proper interest, in George MacDonald's opinion, in their tasks. So one is an astronomer, and I can't remember all their different functions. They all had little jobs, little things, but he describes them more as areas of interest, right? Things that they really like to do. And they start to take more joy and they start to approach those things with more seriousness. And as this happens, the brother becomes less and less authoritarian without ever having changed. So their perception of his authoritarianism changes. Okay. And then suddenly they realize that they are all working on the same project. They're actually all working on the same thing. And when they realize this, they look up and they see each other and they say, "Why, you are my brother. Why," this is my favorite part of the story. "Why, you are my sister," right? And everything takes on, like he describes this one little sibling. She's a little girl and she laughs a lot. I related to her because I laugh a lot. But he says that her laugh became more I don't remember exactly his term, bell-like, I think he said. There was just, it was clearer. It had more reason for being. That's the way I felt about it. So everything becomes clearer. And so what's really interesting is that the description he gives of the different siblings and their areas of interest, and how the how would I put this? The way they go about exploring those areas of interest are flipped. So, for example, there's one brother who's, I can't remember what his area of interest is, but he's down in, he's trying to figure out the foundations of the castle. So he's made, let's say he's an architect, and he spends all his time in the cellars and down below. And as things begin to change, he starts to go up into the heights of the castle, into the turrets. And from there, he gets a better view of how the castle is built, which is, I've always taken that as an analogy to a theologian who's stuck in the weeds of semantics and language and Hebrew and Greek and, all that. And, or an ascetic, a monk, or somebody who's way up, hoo-hoo, way up there, and gains kind of a better understanding. It isn't so caught up in these dark corners, So that's a brief summary of the story, Brian.
Were you saying, Shari, that the looking down from the turrets was the place of what you think might be the theologian lost in the weeds and the monk, or were you saying one or the other?
Well, I think as a theologian lost in the weeds, before the brother is freed from the cellar, right? And they go through the repentance.
That's the cellar, right? Being lost in the weeds.
He's lost in the weeds. He's in the dark, right? In the foundations of this castle. And he realizes after the repentance, after the scene in the Great Hall, he realizes that if he goes up to the heights, he actually has a better idea of how the foundation.
So looking down from the turrets was from the perspective of a monk or a monastic who's in prayer. You're saying
that's the meaning I'm taking from it.
That's what I thought you meant.
It's a more spiritual, like an ascension spiritually. That's how I understand it. But George MacDonald would say whatever you take from this story is what's good for you, right?
Yeah. We don't want to do a point by point analysis and make it an analogy conversation, but I was just making sure I understood what you were saying, because I did listen to it, but the story caught me in a middle of a busier week than I expected. I didn't get to really listen to it the second time like I wanted to, which it would have been required, but so I was making sure I was clear on it. The thing about siblings, I want to jump in and say, what I was listening to you tell the story, retell it. That's all I could hear was in my mind sort of an image of what is it to be a sibling or be among siblings in a family. And we grow up that way and then we part ways, but we never really leave because those years are so formative. We actually live in some ways. Our childhood, we can relive it all our lives, and I think that's part of what the gospel is us learning to join a new family and take the best from the old family and see it redeemed, even see the worst redeemed, but definitely we're not here to relive the worst. That would be hell.
Yeah.
So family and siblings, that's a pretty informing story there, because it tells so much about the several family siblings being kind of in one space and then coming to a conflict, and then after that there's a time of healing and recovery, but then the time and the wind coming in through the windows cleans the room and cleans them, and they realize, you know what? We thought we were broken beyond repair,
right?
But we're actually more family now because of that than we ever were. So I kind of see it as a really beautiful story about brokenness or fallenness and or sin or whatever we do wrong to each other, especially as siblings, and then realizing that may be the beginning of the relationship when it's finally broken, to the point of where it's real.
Right.
So that's what I offer. And after listening to it retold, good job. Good job on the retelling.
I mean, I've sunk myself deep into this story, and I can say you can listen to that story over and over, and it'll keep telling you things.
I will have to.
Yeah, like it's just an incredible story. Anybody else have any thoughts on the story? Trace?
Well, I can relate to it, to some of it, the ideas in it. Yeah. I need to listen to it again. My mind wandered, so I had a hard time really hanging on to it when I was hearing it. And but yeah, it was good.
I think what stood out to me was the inversion of the brother not changing, but everyone's relationship to the brother changing as the authoritarian, which was, on the first part of it, something of a killjoy or, a bummer or whatever,
Yeah.
But then them finding their real passions and giftings and callings and joy in him in his vision of things, I guess, after the party, the storm, the return of the brother.
Yeah.
That one piece of it really stood out to me.
There's a line in the story somewhere where it says that, when they perceived him as authoritarian, it was because he was calling them to a higher version of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And later he never changed. The brother never changed, the older brother. But when they got to that higher calling of who they were, suddenly what looked like a grimace became a smile, right, on his face. And it was always a smile, but it was just their perception of it. And there's this, I'm just going to look for a quick thing at the end, but if anybody's got any thoughts, please feel free.
There's two different versions of family there. There's the original sort of given family that's, I guess structured, hierarchical, and at least potentially joyless. And then after this change in everyone, there seems to be a completely different definition of family that comes out.
Yeah. Well, there's a key line here. I don't want to spend too much time on this story because if I get started, I won't stop. It's me that I'm talking to. But there's a line here where now I lost it. Sorry. Oh, here. But the fact was that the desire to ascend, awakening within him, had made him forget what was beneath. And having laid aside his chart for a time at least, he was now to be met in every quarter of the upper parts, searching and striving upward, now in one direction, now in another, and seeking, as he went, the best outlooks into the clear air of outer realities. This was the brother that was down in the basement, right? But I mean, just that sentence alone, the desire to ascend, awakening within him, had made him forget what was beneath, right? I don't know about you, but I get that stuff like that gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, it's similar to what I was just saying about the completely inverted experience. And
Yeah.
this has the up and down um, dimension to it, or direction to it, that you're describing from the story. And I just recognize it as, yeah, I mean, in some ways, this gets to Brad's and my differences in that you could see it as a continuation of the family, or you could see it as sort of the inbreaking and something completely new, a completely redefined set of relationships that comes from, I don't know, the new birth, or the event, whatever it would be called in MacDonald's story.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
it's like you can see it as both. Like there
Yeah.
is a continuation. There's continuity in the old and the new, and then there's also discontinuity. And yeah, and maybe that could be a part of polarization itself in our day. Certainly, Brad and I have found that our differences kind of take the shape of those interpretations of the Christian tradition, and of well, it goes to the Gospels even. Like, what did Jesus mean when he came not to abolish the law but to fulfill it? Does that mean it's all in continuity, or does that mean the fulfillment means starting over, a new, something completely new? So I thought I'd throw that out there as, like, certainly a part of our conversation that I think resonates with me about the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, another image that came to mind for me while you were reading or telling this time, not when I listened originally, is the image of the mirror and related to siblings. And here we are talking about, before the recording started, we were talking about each other, and you two being a couple of years apart and me and Brian being identical. Well, there's something about the sibling, especially if you're close in age, or especially identical twins,
Yeah.
or like you and Tracy are. Y'all are looking in the mirror when you see each other.
Right.
That's true of most. I mean, we all are looking into the mirror when we look at the image of God in other people.
Mm-hmm.
But in a special way, we're looking at each other more closely in the in a direct way, with that familial bond, and then with you add on the twin relationship. And I just want to point out that in my own experience of my and Brian's struggles to communicate and in our disagreements, there is a sense that the mirror image thing can be used well and be helpful overall, or it can be more spiral down, or go into a bad direction. But the invention of the mirror, I think, came around I think it's around the 13th or 14th century, and it was said that changed France from being a certain kind of culture into a melodramatic culture, where they would look at themselves, especially the aristocracy, and see more than what they were used to seeing, and they tried, like we do with our phone cameras today, or on social media, we pose for it and create stories, and it's a part of it's part of technology. It's a part of our understanding of what it is to be human, to look in the mirror, but it can be used in constructive ways. And I guess the analogy that popped into my head is, you have a mirror on your dresser to make sure you look well and straight before you go out into the world. And that's a good use of a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to be living in a house of mirrors where you don't know yourself from the next person, or if the shapes are distorted because of all the ways we interact in patterns that aren't good, they get repeated and distorted, and we wind up having more neurosis as a result of these reflections all around us. So I think our orientation towards reality and towards life apart from the mere, like you do leave your family to become a new family when you get married, for instance. You are supposed to sort of individuate. And I'm saying with Paul Vander Klay, in our conversation with Brian and me with him, that I think individuation is at the heart of what I'm struggling with. And it has to do with not just trying to form my opinions over against Brian's, but it has to do with my which set of mirrors am I using and how is it working? And these are individuating realities. So that's my another last spin on that story.
I'll respond not so much directly to what you just said about that, but there's a lot in that, right? But the mirrors thing. One of the things that I remember when I was first really met my husband, and I was thinking about getting married and everything, and the whole thing was just so epic, and you're young, and the whole world is all about that, and then that was my experience for the first bit, in my marriage. I felt like he was always reflecting who I was back to me, and it was terrifying because I was seeing things I'd never seen before, and it happened because of our relationship. But I want to back up even just more, because Shari, when you were kind of wrapping it up on that story, one of the things that you mentioned was this idea that the perception, the grimace, that when we're looking at him as him, I'm talking about our Creator, and we get the feeling that we're being looked down on, and in the meantime we're being called up to. And that's been a really powerful kind of a thread right now in my life, in the life of others, is this idea that especially when you're standing on what you feel strongly is truth in relationship. And I've always been the kind of person that doesn't want to move when it comes to truth. It's like, no, I need to just, really dig in. This is truth. And so sometimes I think in my relationships, I think about my kids, it's perceived perhaps as being calling them down, speaking. But one thing I've kind of been thinking about is that it's actually, for me, is I'm calling them up to who I know they are and who I know they're called to be. And so, and that dynamic is in marriage a lot, right? Sibling relationship, I would say the same thing. Sometimes I'll say something to Shari, she'll take offense. She'll be like, I don't know why you're saying that. And I'm like, no, I'm just, what I'm seeing something in you that I want, that needs to be, you're called up to. And of course it's perception, and all that stuff. But yeah, I really love that. I love that. And that's really been my journey as well. There's been times when I've defined my journey with the Creator's hanging on to the hem of his garment, with my arms wrapped around his knees going, oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Which may feel like it could be perceived that he's unkind and looking down on me. But when I was in the midst of those times in my life where I felt like I'd fallen and then came back, he brought me back to who I was called to be. It was, what I sensed was his kindness towards me, and not the other way around, not judgment, not you better step up. It was, no, the reason why you were feeling that was because I was calling you up to who you're called to be. And that's what got you there. And so the story, I felt like I have a few little notes here. Because they had grown brave, humble, and true in heart, they realized the castle wasn't just a building. It was a place where goodness and love lived forever. yeah, so that's kind of capital H on humble. Yeah, like I remember when I sort of realized one of the keys to walking this journey of life on this earth, my home, this earth, my home, was humility. I thought I want to be the best humble person you've ever met.
And that's right when you get humble.
On there, yeah, hold it. You can't be the best. I was like, how do I be the best humble person? Like better than everyone else in my humility. So, anyway, so that's, yeah, I'm still working on that one, which means that's dangerous ground. You're taken down a notch. You're going down, girl. So,
we can all relate to that, though, Tracy. Thanks for saying that. It's like there's a myth told about Psyche and her sister, I think, whichever one, the one that's called Narcissus. She has another name.
Shari.
No comment. But anyway, it's about a mirror. She's looking into the water and she becomes self-conscious. And we call it narcissism. Well, in a way, the invention of the mirror was in the 13th or 14th century, where we could see ourselves, blemishes and all, and in living color very clearly all the time. But when the Freudian can got taken off of that, we saw more clearly into all of our aspects. We saw ourselves a lot more clearly intrapsychically, and the mirror becomes a thing of self-consciousness. It was true from the Garden of Eden that self-consciousness is what happened when we partook of the forbidden fruit. But at the same time, we have levels of consciousness that we enter into at age 7 or 8. We're at the height of our creativity, and self-consciousness becomes part of our story, and we lose some of our creativity, if not all of it, due to self-consciousness. And I think humility is, by its nature, just not being conscious of yourself. You're not you can be conscious of your actions and how you appear to others, but being too self-conscious in this turned inwards way is it's something that lessens us. And so the humility thing, when you said capital H, humility, were you referring to the George MacDonald story by chance?
no.
Okay, I didn't think so. But that's one of the tactics he has, and I don't know what it means, but he capitalizes some of the words in his stories.
Oh, is that right?
I've never learned why he did that, but perhaps he just wants to highlight it as an important word.
I know I did.
I would guess, I'm just guessing, that it would be a person for him, because we capitalize in English, we capitalize persons, places, and things, right? And so I think that's what it would be. But I have a couple thoughts on the mirror thing. So first of all, there's in the story, there's the eldest sister. She's totally depressed. Like, she just can't seem to get over the fact that she didn't do anything to stop the siblings from tying up the brother and sticking him in the cellar. And she kind of lost track of him. She was a little airy fairy, and when he came up, and she couldn't seem to gather herself anymore. Everybody else was doing okay, and she was depressed. And it says it was many days before she recovered from the shock, right? And one day her brother came to her, took her by the hand, led her to an open window, and told her to seat herself by it and look out. She did this, but at first saw nothing more than an unsympathizing blaze of sunlight. This is George MacDonald saying perception, okay? But as she looked, the horizon widened out, and the dome of the sky ascended, till the grandeur seized upon her soul, and she fell on her knees and wept. Now the heavens seemed to bend willingly over her, and to stretch out wide cloud arms to embrace her. The earth lay like the bosom of an infinite love beneath her, and the wind kissed her cheek with an odor of roses. She sprang to her feet and turned, in an agony of hope, expecting to behold the face of the Father. But there stood only her brother, looking calmly though lovingly on her emotion. She turned again to the window. On the hilltops rested the sky. Heaven and earth were one. And the prophecy awoke in her soul that from between them would the steps of the Father approach. Hitherto she had seen beauty, but now she beheld truth. Often she had looked on such clouds as these and loved the strange ethereal curves into which the winds molded them, and had smiled as her little pet sister told her what curious animals she saw in them, and tried to point them out to her. Now they were as troops of angels, jubilant over her new birth, for they sang in her soul of beauty and truth and love. So, the prophecy was that when heaven and earth met, that's where the Father would come from. And she realized when she saw the sky sitting on top of the mountain that was the meeting of heaven and earth. And she turned to see the Father. Where is he? He must be coming. And she saw her brother. And me, as an Orthodox Christian, but one that never goes to church because I don't have a parish nearby, I've been a few times, and this story came to my mind every time in the liturgy. The priest senses the icons, and then he senses the congregants, right? The parishioners. But when he does that, they literally turn and face each other. Yeah. In the liturgies I've been to. And he walked between and all around, right? And so there's a little thought about mirrors and faces, and this happens to be, a deeply, wonderfully curious subject to me.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to, subtext it all with image of the Father, right? It's the image of the Father that we see in each other, and then the other thing I wanted to say about mirrors was George MacDonald was one of the first he's considered the grandfather of fantasy literature. And I think it was him that introduced the going through the mirror. In all fairy tales, previous fairy tales before that, the mirror only reflected something back, and it was usually something evil, right? Like a witch or whatever. Yeah. But in George MacDonald's Lilith, and I think in Fantasties, I can't remember exactly. I know in Lilith for sure, the main character he falls into the mirror actually. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
In one of those stories, the main character sees someone in a mirror, and that's the only place he can see her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
Fantasties.
That's in Fantasties. That's another. I did a whole conversation with. I don't know if you know Eugene Terekin. He's got a Substack. He's a Russian guy, and he specializes in translation with all the Inklings works. And me and Eugene and his wife did a whole conversation on that story, Cosmo, with the woman in the mirror. Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to say, these are the brief points I wrote down while you guys were talking. Meister Eckhart says, the eye with which you see God is the eye with which God sees you. And I remember when I first read that, I was really perplexed by it. I was like, is God looking at me from inside of me? Like, what is he talking about? And then I realized, because of Matthew 7, judge not, right? Because you're going to be judged by the way you judge. I was thinking about that this morning, actually. The eye with which you see God, right? If you perceive God as, let's say, a tyrant, like the brother in the story, then that's the eye with which he will be looking at you. That's the eye with which the children perceive the brother to be looking at them with, right? if you, and so it doesn't just apply to God, it applies to if I see Brad, right?
Mhm.
The eye with which I see Brad is the eye with which Brad sees me, right? So if I perceive Brad to be a certain kind of person, then that's the way he's going to look at me, to me,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know if you guys are getting my golden thread here, but it's all about perception.
I heard that word.
Perception. And then the last thing I'll say, and then let's hear from Brian. I've always thought that the best place to practice the commandment, love your enemies, is within your family. Because here's something that a lot of people have difficulty with. They're born into their families. And this is something that Job talks about. He says, I wish I was never born, right? Because we're thrown into life. We don't get to choose. We don't choose our parents. We don't choose our siblings, right? And that can be a point of irritation for us. And if we, of course, if we dwell on it, if that's the eye with which we see our family, that's the eye with which our family, sees us. So anyway, I'll just throw it out to you guys after all that.
That's good stuff. Brian?
Queued up a lot of things. I mean, I keep going back to all the different layers of polarization that can happen. We're basically just talking about layers of otherness, or down to the individual psyche, to see yourself, and to be living out of that perception, and that to mirror the way you see God. That mirrors the way you see God and interpret God, or think of God. So that's the lowest scale, is like our self-perception inside of our own psyches, and relating to ourselves. And then the furthest one from that, in my mind right now, is polarization. That's whether it's political, religious, or ideological, at the massive scale. And we could even say the global rift in people's outlook today, but specifically our continent, and the whole, in the United States, it's Republican and Democrat, but I don't know what y'all's parties are, but I know there's a division that's similar. But of course, there's families, there's relationships within families that we're talking about. In this case, it's a twinship, and y'all's case, closely a near twinship, or a virtual twinship. And we're basically all just reflecting on what are the times of division about, how are they redeemed? What are the things we learn in this crucible of confusion, where it just seems like there's an impasse that can't be bridged? It's often think of the Tower of Babel, the confusion of language, that this is something that's perennial, that it just happens now and then in cultures, in countries, in families even. And a lot of it is your perception, not only your self-perception, but your perception of how God sees you, and how God sees the other, and what your role is in doing your best with that, how to represent your values, your and I think that may be a good way for us to get to this question of the hierarchy of
Values.
Values, the question of morality, what God cares about, in your questions.
I tried to keep things as general as possible because one of the things I don't want to do is get stuck in the weeds. Like I don't want to talk about specifics.
Yeah.
You know? Because that's where we're all going to differ. Like just because we're all individual human beings with, one of the things I find really interesting, Brian, that I don't know why it doesn't exist today, but I remember growing up that people did not share their political leanings especially not with family members. Okay. Maybe with like-minded friends or something, but not the family members, right? And you could kind of guess by the way they lived their lives. You might, but that was a question that would not be answered. I'm not telling you was the response.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now it seems to matter. And so I don't know. I don't think the problem lies in that it matters. No, I don't think the problem lies in that people are asking each other these things. I think the deeper problem is, why does it matter? Because to me, it can only matter if you are going to exclude or include people into your life. And it's a way of sorting. And that's why we ask. Right? And so I don't understand why people would want to do that. Like, why are they sorting? Why are they asking? They're asking to sort, and they're sorting to exclude or include, right? Which I think puts everyone at risk. Because if you exclude and include, you're only going to include the things that make you comfortable. Because that's how we are as human beings. We want to be comfortable. And then you're going to exclude the things that make you uncomfortable. And pretty soon you're just living in a bubble, right? So if you can not give people that opportunity, and I think the only way you can do that is by saying, I'm not telling. Then here's an example. I had a group of students, university students, staying at my farm for a couple of years in the summer times because they were doing a research project, and they were very liberal students, right? As all students are. They're young people, right? Very liberally minded, and they talked to me about everything, polyamory, the whole 9 yards, everything that they were doing, and I would just listen, and I would, empathize with them and give them my opinion on some things if they asked for it, not if they didn't. And then one day one of them came out and just outrightly assumed that I was, a liberal politically. And I said, oh, you're going to have to stop right there, because I don't think I fit into that category very well. And she said, oh, well, are you a conservative? And I said, oh, you're going to have to stop right there, because, right? I don't think I fit into that category very, very well either.
So you did the wonderful thing there. You had shown them an interest by not, correcting them in everything they were doing and saying. You were listening, and they trusted you, because as someone who's they might think of as open-minded, whatever that means. And so they assumed something about you, but you did the right thing for a relationship, really, is to be able to listen and hear and give space.
Well, honestly, Brad, all I was doing was loving them. That's all I was doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm recognizing. And they opened up. Now they're in politics, by assuming what you thought about American politics was a diversion from the subject as far as you were concerned, especially when they labeled you, right?
Mm-hmm.
They labeled you as a certain kind of person, and you didn't want to accept it, so you shed it, and you did a good thing. That's a way of, and I don't mean to keep saying evaluating with my hierarchy of values what you did is right or wrong. I've
Right.
said that a couple of times. What I'm trying to do is say it is useful for us to be individuated,
Yeah.
even from our parents, maybe perhaps especially from our parents, and even from our siblings. And we have to learn somehow. Even I got married at an early age, but you get married and you have to learn who you are apart from that spouse, hopefully within the marriage, but it can be when that marriage is over, you got to figure it out then. So you may as well, how do you become a real person? This is, to me, the question that Brian and I are after. How do you become a human being? The Velveteen Rabbit, he had the same question. How can I become real? And Brian and I both agree with, on many points of it, that it's about relationship and relating to God and to each other.
Right.
But I think you said earlier that you associate religion, and you may not have meant exactly the way I'm going to say it, but I'm asking you, did you mean you associate religion with ideology
I think,
as if they're the same,
I mean,
on the same level, wavelength?
what I say next can be misinterpreted and flipped upside down, and it's all about perception, but I'll just say it anyways. It's ideology is what idolatry is. It's when you reach the end. You know how they have those stoppers at train stations so that the engine that's the end of the track, right? That's what idolatry is to me. It's like Jesus says, seek and you will find. So in other words, the track never ends. Okay. He doesn't say seek up to this point and then you'll find it right there. No, it's a rainbow, right? It's the treasure's always it's always moving. And so you have to continue. It's a continuous track. It's your life, basically, to me. And so if you settle on something, if you stop anywhere and say, here it is, this is the end of the line, I found it, right? Then that you're in idolatry. And that's what I think ideology does to people. Any ideology, and religion can be an ideology.
Can do that.
Right?
But it's the meaning of the word is that it's something that binds people groups together.
Religio.
In all of creation, considering all things, this is what must bind us. And I think it has been used that way. And the word is not an ancient word. It used to be that, life was what we're talking about. It's a dealing in what binds us, and that includes the gods. And so I've forgotten what my point was really in asking you about the religious, but it does. I was thinking when we're individuated, that's part of becoming more. We become more human, and being human and being Christian are the same to me. And to Brian and me, we're trying to understand what it is, how it is that two Christians, two human beings, especially two family members who share so much, how can we be so polar opposites in our views on something like what one of you called the bubble of living in a bubble of American politics. And I very much see the polarization that the country is in as a relatively, if you're thinking cosmically and religiously, this polarization thing we're in is a momentary thing, and it's also very small and easy to sidestep if you understand what it is and how it's working.
Well,
Yeah,
I
that's kind of.
also see it. Well, Shari and I have talked about this quite a bit too, how, well, first of all, I just want you to know, I listened to you guys talking with Paul, your stories. And what I thought about was the difference for us, well, for me as a Canadian is, what is that word when you really believe in your country? What's that? What is that?
Patriotism?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. We don't have it. Well, anyways, I don't. We've never really been like the rah Canada. There's the flag. Oh, everyone stop, because there's, we've sort of had this. We're Canadians, and Canada is the best country in the world, but we just know it. We don't have to talk about it. That's kind of how it's, right? But politically, for me, I've always just been a little bit of a fringe person, so I'm always watching and looking and sort of like, yeah, maybe, well, not sure. Mm-hmm. But so I'm just going to back up a little bit and talk about the us and them thing. Shari and I've talked about that with religion in our journeys, and much the same as what I hear you guys are going through, because it sounds like you guys, it reminds me a lot about what happened in my life. I was rolling along and I bumped into, the disaster of myself at one point in time. And I thought, well, I might as well just take my life because there's no reason to live. So I started thinking about how I could do that. And in that moment, I had a visitation, whatever you want to call it, spiritual thing. I was sitting in the bush in some trees, and which was my medicine, still is. And then I had a fire, and I heard clearly, you haven't tried me yet. So I thought, well, I've tried everything. I mean, I was trying every substance that I could to get reality. I wanted to get beyond what this reality was to something that was purposeful. And I was in this sequential vortex that just sucked me down until I was turning into, nothing. I wanted to die. And so I was invited to try a different path. And when the words that were spoken to me were words that I understood to be from the Bible. I've come that you might have life and have it to the full. But in that, it was like, well, you haven't tried me. And I thought, well, I didn't know that was an option, because if you're talking about them, as in what Christians. I as Christianity, then I'm sorry, I don't even care if you're God right now. I can't do it. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But you've obviously done something wrong here, because I'm not, you're saying try me. And I'm like, if that means them, not having it. And so I heard clearly, which I'm so grateful for. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about me and you. And so I thought, well, I didn't know that was an option. I was like, okay, well, I might be able to handle it. But, in my very youthful pride, I said, well, I will. But if this doesn't work, I'm going back to plan A, which is hilarious, because I don't think I intimidated him at all with my and so then here I am, I'm stumbling along, I was sort of felt like Frankenstein. I was like, where do I go next? It was like, walk this way. Okay, this way, and oh, there's somebody who says that they know God. I'll find out what that means, and then I'm like, oh, this is happy. I like this. Maybe this is God. And then, and it was like slam. Okay, that's not okay. We'll go over here. And so I sort of feel like I've been bumping into walls for many years of my life. But the one thing that I learned fast was my experience with them and my experience with God were two different things. Mm-hmm. And I never seemed to be able to bring it together. So then I was under this influence that I thought that I had to hang it on something, because you can't just be wandering around, be a lone wolf and not have a covering and, all these catchphrases. Yeah. So I was, I live remotely, and honestly, my experience with church wasn't long. I have a long story when it comes to that spiritual part. But anyway,
because you're old, Tracy.
Yeah, right. I'm different than you. anyway, and I was carrying this experience that I had, what I felt like who I was, looking for somewhere to hang it. And I'd walk in and I'd go, oh, there, maybe I can hang it here. And it was like, oh yeah, no, we're not hanging it here. And then over here, and how about here? Oh yeah, no, we're not hanging it here. And then one day, and it wasn't that long ago, I'm ashamed to admit, I said, Lord, I've been walking around for years with this experience that I've had with you, and I don't know where to hang it. Or is there anywhere to hang it? And you know what he said to me so clearly? Stop looking for somewhere to hang it. Why don't you just wear it?
Yeah.
And again, I was like, that's an option. I didn't know that was an option. I thought I had to hang my hat somewhere. I thought I had to sign up.
Yeah.
You know, and so
good.
In that, I felt this us and them thing has always been so annoying to me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm really no different than anyone else, whether they call themselves Christians or not, to be honest. And so I feel like this is our journey in this life as humans, is to wear our experience, to be who we're called to be. And then in 2016, you know, when my husband's like watching the news and I was like, shut that off. It's an absolute circus right now. I heard somebody say clownery. It might have been one of you guys. It's like clowning. They're both clowns. It's just a gong show. I'm not getting sucked into, well, let's talk about if this guy's a good person or this is a good person. It's like, I can see, you know, it's BS, and it's a whole, it's like over here in ring number 3, you know? Now in saying that, I had some convictions, as in what I felt like was things that I couldn't move on. So it was like the lesser of two evils, but I never felt like it was God's answer for humanity, or, you know, it's just a part of what's going on in this world.
Yeah.
So long story short, my world that I mostly live in is very liberal. And again, like Shari, most of my friends are. And I felt like there was this line that was drawn suddenly, and I was being forced to take a side. So when I was hearing what was going on with you guys a bit in your story and the polarization and the whole thing that's going on, part of me feels like a lot of that, it may be that part of it is imposed. Yeah. Because all of a sudden it's this meaning crisis. It's this, you know, it's this thing that they're putting labels on where we're headed globally and all this kind of stuff. And it felt like it was imposed. Where I was like, well, I think I'm a pretty liberal thinking person, but I have very conservative values. So I'm not going to take a side. I think the sides are a lie. There isn't sides. So
that's what I was referring to about the bubble, because I think it's smaller than we think. The political landscape of the current American politics, which is in a larger story, which you can call modern Enlightenment times, or then you get bigger and it's the, you know, history of the West, whatever. But the bubble is that, you know, we are in a frame that is, it's going to change. It's going to get worse, or it's going to get better, and it's going to end. Nothing lasts forever. Even our lives are part of that, where how are we going to spend our time trying to deal with each other? And I will say this personally, I ask myself and Brian this question a lot. How much longer are we going to, in a futile manner, try to work out our differences about political stuff? And I think Brian and I don't, you know, I'll say I have at least expressed, not with all my actions, but definitely in my words, often I've said, I want to stop talking about politics with you, Brian, but I don't want to stop talking to you. Haven't I said that, Brian?
So
Yeah.
here's a question for you guys. Is this the approach then? Because that's what I was just saying earlier. When I'm growing up, nobody talked about it. It was a
Yeah.
private
Well,
matter. And I don't know when that changed. And I have a feeling that the why is a little bit nefarious. Like Tracy's saying, is this
Yeah.
imposed on us?
Well,
Right?
I think
I
it.
don't know by who. Like I don't have, we talk about them or the
Well,
great.
Brian and me grew up in church. We grew up in church in a tight family, tight church
Yeah.
situation with wounds and scars along the way. So it wasn't
Y'all,
perfect.
I'm listening, but I'm going to go let my dog out. She needs to go outside for a sec. I'm listening.
All
Sure.
right. So the context that Brian and I have been in is family and church, Christian family and church, I'll add, and then going to seminary together and studying for how to have a possible career in these similar things. And so we knew we kind of had a little bit of difference in the way we thought, even politically, but theologically also slightly along the way, but they were never like the essentials. Like, they say if you ever have, less than charity in all things, but you do need to have some, clarity about who you are and what you believe on the essentials. Brian and I haven't had any division on the essentials as far as theology goes.
Yeah.
So we've never had a reason to really just dig in. But it seemed like with this newer and current landscape politically, that the American story was pulling us and grabbing us in. That's where it was opposed upon us, I think, that we had to care because there were such high stakes or something like that. And I think it is a bubble, like you can get outside of it. And as Christians, we have to, and to keep our sanity, we have to stay like, we have to transcend this mess of the current, all I can think of is the Forrest Gump story where the little girl's saying, "Oh God, give me wings so I can fly far, far away from here. Make me a bird." Jenny says that when she's in an abusive home life. There is a sense in which that prayer, "Oh God, make me a bird," is the prayer of every Christian when it comes to politics. We've got to transcend this in a way, at least for a moment. You're going to come back to the body, you're going to come back to the culture, but our life and our imagination and our prayerfulness is the looking down from the turrets, from as if we live in that eternal castle where we can see and breathe and be. But this quagmire of the American political landscape is no place to dwell. And there are some things to work out on the ground, but I think the transcendence with our faith is the key to it. And Brian and I have each of us have associated our religious beliefs with our chosen political beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's where the rub is. It's really hard to talk to Brian about anything without this coming back up.
Oh, I see.
So,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's a dance. It's a work in progress for me and Brian, but we've spent years now, you can count them on one hand. But that's a lot of years.
Yeah.
Kind of working at it, but not getting where we think we should be by now at any point. And so I guess in inviting ourselves into this little corner, like I did with Paul when I asked him to meet with us, and then us having a little bit more of a public conversation and trying to understand how it is we can talk about the core of what's going on here. It's stretched me, and I think it's going to help us and help each of us communicate better, realize there's not an urgency that we have to settle this. I think there's some very bad directions that this whole thing could go politically and culturally, and it might. you can't think of it getting much worse, but like Jordan Peterson says, it can always get worse. And you don't want it to. You want to do what you can to keep that from happening. And earnestly, Brian and I both are trying, I think, to represent sides that are trying not to make it get worse, whatever this chaos and mess is. But we also earnestly disagree when it comes to the politics. And what I want to do is step back and sort of, we call it meta-analysis, which was
I was just gonna ask you a question in that as a kind of a meta. This is for both of you, and Brian, you haven't said anything for a while, so maybe you want to chime in. But how could you, or could you see your differences as a strength for the relationship?
Yes, it should be. That's the way it's supposed to be working in life in general. You know, one of you, I think Tracy said, we don't really, or maybe I don't remember which one of you said it, but we don't want to
Twins.
We both said it.
if there's something we don't want, we won't choose it or something. But sometimes, and I don't remember what you said right at this point. I got the picture that it was something like, we of course wouldn't choose something we don't want, but I think we often do choose things we don't want or don't think are best. Or sometimes we choose the more difficult thing in lieu of the hard thing. I mean, the more difficult thing in lieu of the easy thing for a good reason, which is so we can grow. And that's what I want to learn, the wisdom to learn when it is I should and should not engage in conversations that seem divisive. But I think it's wrong to just say you never talk about it with people you're close to. But you can't just talk about the one subject as if that's the subject. To me, life is the subject, and it's in the context of our religion, our whole life, and our understanding and experience of that is like the people in the castle. They're not in the cellar in the weeds. They're not in their father's hall abusing the place and tearing it up. And they haven't committed the atrocity of tying their brother up in the cellar, but really life is the eternal castle that we live in, is that there's a breeze and it's on a mountain and it's under the great dome of stars, and this is a beautiful place and we're all here together and it's our refuge from the storms. And Christianity to me is universal. Not that it's well, I want to say there's a connection for all people, all humans, that Christianity wants to bring together. Tracy, you were mentioning your beautiful story about saying that you heard the Lord speak, and he was saying, look, don't worry about those people right now, just have you considered me? That's a beautiful story, because when we encounter the Lord and he speaks to us, that's looking in the real mirror. I mean, that's looking in the mirror of God's word to us, and it changes us. And I think it frees us when we realize we don't have to figure it all out right now. That being connected to other people might take a lifetime to I won't even say master, but to figure out how it works.
Well, here's the thing, Brad.
Family and marriage and friendship does that for us.
You get to a certain age and suddenly you realize how short your life is. And I'm not there yet, hopefully, but I can see it around. I can see it around the corner. But, and then all of a sudden, all of this stuff just feels like it's just not even worth it.
Well, I like what you said earlier about matter. You and I've talked about this at times too. I love that. I mean, I'm not a scientific person. I'm a creative, kind of a mystical type person. But when I think about matter, I think matter means matter, right? We learn that in science, what matters. And what you make matter, Shari and I have talked about that, when you put attention to. So my granddaughter was just here the other day and I said, you know something? You know what happens when you have a plant? I said, what happens if you give the plant attention? what if you don't give the plant attention? Do you know what that means? Well, she said, not watering it. I said, yeah. What happens to it if you don't attend to it? She said, well, it'll die. I said, yeah. So what happens if you attend to it? If you give it attention, you can, well, some of us can't make them live, but we try. Live. And so I said to her, you know, what you put your attention to, you bring life to. I said, you know, when children are small, you have to give them attention in order for them to grow and thrive, and they become people, little humans. If you don't, something inside them, you're not giving it the attention. So therefore, it's because they don't matter to you. It's like that thing about the reflection. So I guess sort of in a roundabout way, what we're talking about is what we give attention to. And so I live in a culture that is not my own, but I've received it as my own for 41 years now. And what I thought at the beginning of my relationship here, because I was new to God and faith, and then I was to the community.
I don't know if Brad and Brian know what culture you're talking about.
I live in a First Nations community, and I work for the community just for the last 15 years, and I've raised my children here. I have 13 grandkids, and some of the children are also band members in this community. And so I remember coming in early, because I also thought that when he said it's just me and you at the very beginning, when it's just me and you, he said, how about that? Can you do that? I said, well, I can do that. So then he said, so what do you want to do with that? And I said, well, I'm all in. So if it's going to be me and you, then what does that mean? All in. So I fished around and bumped into people who I thought might have some answers. And I thought all in means serving God for the rest of your life, serving God, abandoning everything. And, you know, and so then I started heading in that direction. Okay, well, I'm going to do that thing. So what is that called? Well, that's called being a missionary or being in ministry or whatever. Okay, so we're going to try that, see what that looks like. And anyway, so, you know, it's been a long journey for me. I don't know where I'm going from here. How did I get here?
First Nations community, receiving that.
Well, then what I found out was, you know, I remember saying, God, why am I here? I mean, I feel like a flippin', and, you know, I don't mean to sound trite, because I know these are heavy things, but I feel, and I don't mean to sound racist either, but I feel like a German dropped into a Jewish community, and I'm here to say, I've come to bring you bread. Why aren't you smiling? You know, you know, but I didn't know that from the beginning. Like, I didn't know that there was historical effect. I was just very naive, and I just thought, well, I'm just going to let my little light shine, you know. And man, I tell you, I remember feeling something from people, and I was like, I don't know what I'm getting here. Like, I just want to learn. I want to be humble, and I want to learn, and I want to be able to help in any way I can, you know. And it's like, you know, we've had your help. Thank you very much. You can go on now, you know. And thank God I was ignorant to begin with. But then I remember at one point hearing clearly that, you know, this isn't about you, Tracy. This is about you. What did you ask me for at the very beginning? I said, well, I want to live. I want to try something else. He said, well, you said, try me. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to show you who I am. So I said, so why am I here then? And he said, because you're going to see who I am in the faces of the people that are here. And I'm like, oh, okay. And by seeing who he was in the faces, and is in the faces of the people in my community, in my family now, I've known who he is and where he's been. Because at, you know, at some point I was like, where are you anyway? where have you been? And he's like, I've been with the broken and the lost. Well, you come over here and meet them, and you'll meet me.
Yeah.
So that's been my journey in it. And so when it comes to differences in opinions, lifestyle, sexual preferences, all of it, I've really enjoyed the freedom of not having to make any decision about it on their behalf. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I remember one time walking into a building, actually, and I looked up and I saw a couple. There were some dynamics that were just awful, ugly. I kind of wanted to go the other way because it was something that I was really uncomfortable with. And I said, Lord, what on earth am I supposed to do with this? And he said, nothing. It's not yours to deal with. I said, how am I supposed to deal with this thing in front of me? He said, it's not yours to deal with.
Is that the story? Is that the story, Tracy, that you told about some bed and breakfast people?
No, that's not.
I was going to ask if you meant by that, Tracy, that it doesn't matter when you said something. That thing didn't matter. Would you say that it doesn't matter to you right now, and that's what your message was, that it's not your business? That's something that's not your concern. You can't fix it, and in that sense, it shouldn't matter to you. Or did you mean? And this maybe there may be other options here, but did you mean it doesn't matter at all, or what?
I think it mattered to them.
But this is the morality question now.
But yeah, and I don't know any hard fast answers, but I could say I think it mattered to them, and maybe it mattered to them between their creator.
Yeah.
But by me putting attention on it,
Yeah.
I would have brought it to life, which not life in a good way. I would have brought that thing to life, which would have given it energy, which, like she said, it would have reflected my judgment, really, for lack of a better word, on their situation, and I would have made it matter in my relationship with them. But I was so grateful for that split second of and I love freedom. I'm a person that I need freedom for creativity. It's one of my things. But so I got that freedom instantly when I was told. I said, how am I supposed to deal with this, Lord? And he said, you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's not yours to deal with.
I think that's what I'm realizing is the situation with me and Brian, learning to realize that it's not for me to change Brian and his mind or his opinion or anything. It does matter. There are matters that are of great concern here, but as far as my role or my position or what am I supposed to be doing right now, I don't have to change my brother's mind. And I think it's a mindset that I have, that I think I'm learning that I can be trusting and free of the relationship, and mostly of of the Christian God, that we would, and that you can connect with those you don't believe the same as, and you can connect and associate and be close to. And it's kind of like you said, you can draw near to God, and in doing so, you may draw near to his people. You will eventually, but you don't have to worry about that right now. It doesn't matter. Let's just listen to me and hear my voice. Follow me. And that doesn't mean you have to work it all out with your politics or your ecclesiology or which denomination to join or how to approach issues of morality, which it is a question of, if it matters, it can become quickly an issue of morality. So I don't know, I'm just kind of bouncing off what you were saying and responding to it. But
yeah, I just want to hear from Brian. Brian, you haven't said anything for a long while yet.
Thanks. Yeah.
I'm sure you have lots of thoughts.
Lots of thoughts. Yeah. I'm thinking about what matters being a distinction from ideology and religion of any kind, politics for sure. What matters, what actually has material importance is the mind of Christ formed in us, whatever culture, family, tribe, country that we find ourselves in. I think y'all are right that it is an identity that's handed to you, a sorting that is done for you, and you're supposed to be made to fit those sorts and those polar extremes. And on a quick brush, maybe you do. There are differences that are real. The ones that matter, if you focus on them in a certain way, it's like the George MacDonald story where the immature sort of attention that you give to differences just creates discord and division and strife and fratricide.
Yeah. There's a really cool line in the story where before they have their moment of repentance, which is a choke point. I just want to point this out because it's kind of interesting. There's a shape to the story, right? You start out here, you go to here, and then you go to here. And it's a downward movement. And I can be like really in my head. I'm so glad Tracy's here because she has all these nice grounded stories to whatever fan it out. But it's a birth, a death, and a resurrection, right? This is what that's that movement. But it's also like Meister Eckhart said, if you have a spiritual journey, it's 1/4 of an inch long, but it's many miles deep. Right. And I spoke to a woman once who was working at a university in administration, and apparently she didn't like her job, and everybody was going, how's it going? How's your job going? And she said, it's hard. It's hard to be there every day, but it is unto my salvation.
Yeah.
That's what she said. And I was like, I'm stealing that.
I'm stealing it.
I am stealing that.
Staying with hard relationships, staying with family, staying with wherever you're planted and seeking the bloom of everyone around you, starting with your own being nurtured in the presence of God. There's a lot to be said for that. And really that's life. That's the stuff of life. I mean, I think the way that we have peace within ourselves and the way that we have peace in relationships, the way that we have that transcendence you're talking about, that takes you up from division and difference into the new possibilities that prove that both of you were thinking too small to begin with, just like the story. It's the resurrection life and the really the new. I want to keep wanting to say that the new life of resurrection, the new humanity, the goal of life is being born.
Yeah. Totally.
So I've never given birth, and I want to be clear about that. But the reality of childbirth being the best picture of life as we know it, whether we're in different situations in different countries and different parts of this continent. It's fascinating to hear. Is it since you were 20 years old, you've lived with this First Nation community, Tracy?
19.
Is that what I heard you say? 19?
19, yeah.
And you didn't know why? I mean, I'd love to
I
hear.
was 5 when I got married.
Yeah.
Okay.
5? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I was 5 years old. How old I am? 27 years old. So.
So you married into it, the tribe?
No, but my husband was here. He was from the
Gotcha.
area. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So not technically, but yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, how could you plan out your spiritual growth at 19 and it turned out the way that it did? You couldn't. You
I
just
heard
you
it.
stepped.
Yeah, I read the story of Corrie ten Boom, and I was like, I want to be her. And now I'm like, oh wait, just kidding. I started thinking about what the actual story was. Just kidding. I was just kidding.
Yeah.
Let's just thinking about that part. But
Well,
yeah,
like, again, the analogy of pain and suffering for the purpose of new life is, I think, a good one. In the context of whatever kind of discord, fracturing, division that we are suffering within different social and familial relationships, cultural and otherwise, there is a sense in which that doesn't matter as much as the goal that is for everyone to be reaching maturity in Christ, and for the mind of Christ to be the way we engage with the world in a way so that it does matter,
Something I've been thinking about a lot lately is the whole idea of so Christ was called Emmanuel at the very, like God with us, right? But the description before his name is given is unto us a child is born. Like you were saying, Brian, earlier, the whole idea of childbirth. And actually, I think in the book of Revelation, the seed of the woman will trample the serpent's head, right? Those are children, period. It can also be an image of Christ, but it's also an image of children being born, right? So, and wait a minute, now I'm going to lose my train of thought. Darn it.
For either one of y'all, though, how does the goal of life become birth? Brian, you said that.
Well,
Tracy got something.
Yeah. I just wanted to finish my thought, but I lost it. What was I talking about? I was talking about unto us a child is born and God with us, right? Emmanuel.
And you said
I lost it. I lost it. I can't. Oh, I know what I know now.
Yeah.
So the God with us thing is, Christ was an integrated man. This is what I'm trying to say. Okay. He was fully individuated. He was full, and to be individuated is to be fully integrated. And this is why Meister Eckhart describes the spiritual journey as many miles deep, not very long, but many miles deep, right? Mm-hmm. Because we don't live in linear time when we're doing this. That's the eternal. That's the now. It's the present. It's the present moment. And so, like Christy said, my friend, it's unto our salvation. This life is given to us for our salvation. Mm-hmm. Like you said, Brian, the whole reason we're born is to live. Right? And the whole reason we live is unto our salvation. Right? So there's no experiencing I'm going through this book right now in a course with Michael Martin, The Pillar and Ground of the Truth by Pavel Florensky. And there's this one spot where he says at the end of To the Reader, he says, one hears that in foreign lands, people are now learning how to swim, lying on the floor with the aid of equipment. In the same way, one can become a Catholic or a Protestant without experiencing life at all by reading books in one's study. He has a further explanation for this, so don't be offended. But to become Orthodox, it is necessary to immerse oneself all at once in the very element of orthodoxy, to begin living. And I'm not making a case for orthodoxy. I'm just saying that I think that what a lot of people miss, they're looking for the answer in a book or a sermon or a ideology or whatever it might be, or a politician, right? And the answer is you. You are the, and I say this and I hope nobody misunderstands me, the way, the truth, and the life, right? Mm-hmm. And it's yours. Your life is given to you to walk out. Why? Because you are like a city set on a hill. But the whole in my mind, the whole idea is to be fully integrated, which is a reconciliation of opposites, because Paul, the apostle, says, I don't do what I want to do. What I want to do, I don't do. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the battle that we're having on the outside is the battle that we're having on the inside.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we don't solve this problem, we're never going to solve their problems, everybody else's problems. Okay.
Preach it.
We have to integrate, we have to reconcile ourselves within ourselves, of course, with God, right? Mm-hmm. God with us, Emmanuel, and then we will shine. And I'm just going to end on this, and you can tell me what you think. So in this book, he talks about epoche, which is a Greek word, and what it means is a suspension of judgment. And there's two ways to suspend judgment. You can suspend judgment as a skeptic. Mm-hmm. Say, I don't know. I don't care. Right. And that's kind of that idolatry move, right? Where you hit the train, the thing at the end of the station, and you just stop dead in your tracks. Stasis. That's what that is. Or it's epoche as ataraxy, which is a quiet waiting on the Lord as a suspension of judgment. And of course, this is where humility comes in, right? Because you have to say, you could be the skeptic, and here's how the mirror works, who says, I don't know, I don't care, and essentially he's come to a standstill, and he's going to defend that spot because that's the only place he has to move. Like, think about it physically. He can't go anywhere else. He's up against a wall, right? So that person is, I deal with animals. I mostly live with animals, not people, okay? And you put any of them up against a wall, and you're going to get some pushback. Serious pushback, like life-threatening pushback, okay? But if the person suspends judgment, as in literally a hanged man, suspended, floating above, ascended, transcendent, you can think about it in all those terms, as a form of humility, then you can literally believe in God's providence. And it's not like nothing matters. You don't care. You don't care about those people. You don't care about the issues. You don't care about the justice. You don't care about the injustice. We all care about those things. Every human being on the face of the earth cares about those things. But what are you going to do about it? Seriously, like in the world, on the world stage,
Mhm.
as a Christian, I think the only thing you can do is love your neighbor and love God
As
right?
yourself.
As yourself, right? As yourself.
Mhm.
So anyway, just wanted to.
I wanted to go back to that, Brad. What was that question that you said at the beginning? What it was something to do with. Remember you said that
At the beginning of our hour talk?
No, sorry, just before Shari was talking about, you said, I have a question.
Oh yeah, and Tracy,
I was like, oh, I got this.
I said, in what way is birth the goal of life? If we come from our birth, if we're born into the world, and we know, I mean, in what ways is birth the goal?
Well, again, I got excited about that because I was thinking about that, back to the beginning of my journey. I have to keep going back to that because I often have to be reminded where I came from, and
we're also honestly very simple people. We start like a little seed, right?
Yeah.
And that will be the through line in our lives. Like,
yeah, it's all there.
I've been in the corner for a long time, and almost everyone in the corner who has any kind of voice sounds like a broken record. Because we have had experiences that have transformed us, right?
Mhm.
Anyway, go ahead, Tracy. I didn't want to interrupt.
Well, I remember at 12 years old, my dad read Hal Lindsey, The Late Great Planet Earth, along with a million other people, and
Our parents.
or more. And there I was, doodle doodle doo. So what you reading, Dad? The end of the world? Oh, that doesn't sound good. Yeah. What's going to happen? You're either going to go to hell or heaven. Stay here and burn, and I was like, well, how do I not stay here and burn? That doesn't feel comfortable. And he said, well, go ask Jesus into your heart. So I was like, okay, I'll be right back. So I asked Jesus into my heart. And then I remember, sitting in the bush contemplating suicide, and God said, you haven't really tried me. So then I got up and went that direction. And I remember at one point saying, I want to say the beginning of my journey, but I'm trying to remember which one was it, Lord? Was it 12 when I said, Jesus, forgive me? Or was it when I was, 17 and I said, I'll try you. And he said, no. He said it was from the beginning. And I was like, could you clarify? Like my beginning? The beginning? So when did my journey start with you? He said, at the beginning. So that was good news for me because I've never liked the us and them. Oh, I used to be like them and now I'm there, this whole thing. It's like, it took all that away and it made more sense. And I remember I had a vision after he told me, try me. And I remember suddenly I saw a cornucopia. It was upright. And you guys know what the cornucopia is, right? And it was bubbling over with abundance, color like a Skittles commercial. Like, so while we were in that area where we lived at the time, because my sister and I were there, we did a lot of mushrooms. So that could have contributed. But let's just keep it PG.
I bet it did.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, the cornucopia, and I heard him say clearly, "I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly." And I saw that cornucopia, and so as I grew in my journey, in that respect of the journey, I felt like that was what he was saying to me: is you can be abundant like that. Later on, I felt like he was saying that was you. And then that's going to be you. And then now as I get older, I'm understanding, at least I feel at this point, that he's saying to me, that is you. I'm like, and that was me then? Like, I was like, yeah, that was not me. There was no abundance going on there, except other stuff. But And so, you know, I do drug and alcohol counseling, and I share my story a little bit with people, and then people will say to me, well, what was the key? Like, what helped you? Was it the 12 steps? What tools did you use to stay sober? How, you know, and the only thing that came to my mind was that moment. And so the way I can verbalize it best is this way, and I might change it later, but it's walking into who I am has caused me to walk out of who I'm not. But it wasn't, it's one and the same. And so it's not so much that I'm not real. I'm not the person I'm supposed to be. I think I am the person I'm supposed to be, but I'm walking further into understanding what that means. And as I further, you know, up and in, farther up, further in, good old, what's his name, Reepicheep, then I walk out of who I'm not naturally.
Which is what the scripture says, you know, that we, you know, that God will give us our name. He'll put our name on our forehead.
Yeah.
And I've always had that sense that when he does that, we're going to be like, oh, of course. How did I not see that?
It's a secret name.
That's who you are. And when I listen to you guys talking, I listen to your stories individually, and then I listen to the thing together. And I thought, I said to Shari, it kind of reminds me of an internal dialogue with two people, because you're like, you're one of the same, but it's that thing, you know, it's like, you know, Tracy, you're terrible at that. And then I go, no, but you're not really terrible at that, are you, Tracy? And I'm like, well, not really, but I'm actually pretty good at it. Yeah, but you need to work more. You need to do that better. And then I'm like, yeah, but I have really committed myself. It's like you guys, it's almost like being twins. It's almost like you're having this internal dialogue, but it's out loud, and it's coming out of two separate people, you know? And so I see that as that reflective thing, you know. Shari's said things to me before where she's like, Tracy, remember one time she was talking to me about something very touchy, and she said, you can't see the forest for the trees. And I said, oh, stop right there. You need to know something, Shari. I see the forest despite the trees. Okay. And she's like, okay, whatever that means. But so, and you know, it pissed me off, because I just felt like she was, you know, don't assume you know what I'm going through, and that I got later on down my life, and I realized she was right about it. But it's not.
What was that, Shari?
As usual.
As usual.
Oh, usual.
Shari has only been wrong once, and that's when she thought she was wrong, but she was actually right.
Not true.
Anyway, no, I'm just saying, I think it's really cool how you guys are defaulting, you know, you're landing on the same place each time. And I heard that in all the conversations. So it's like, I feel like I've got those 3 videos in my head right now, you know, you guys talking separately. And then, but I see all your default is always, but we love each other, you know.
That's true.
And you know, I get accused of kumbaya in the corner all the time. And I'm like, you guys, you know, you have no idea how far from the truth you are. I mean, I don't know what they mean by kumbaya. Like, first of all, what is, you know, as Jordan Peterson would say, that depends on what you mean by kumbaya, right? But my idea of kumbaya is having 4 university students who are practicing polyamory in my guest accommodations. And okay, and well, not actually in the act of it, but you know, they're all out there. I don't know what they're doing. They seem to really like it, but then they come in once a week for dinner, and they sit. You know, one time they were all sitting on the floor in the living room, and I was sitting in. I've got 2 rocking chairs in my living room, and I was sitting in the rocking chair, and we were all talking, and then one of them all of a sudden she was sitting closest to me. And she goes, This is so weird, but I just feel like, Shari, you need to have like a really big pipe. And then, you could be the sage and we're just asking you the questions and you're so wise. And I'm like, okay, really? I thought I was part of the group.
Yeah.
Again.
Trying to be one.
Wah, wah, wah. I'm just the old
Shari
lady in the rocking chair.
I was earlier referring to a story, and I'll get quieter after this. But
you have to tell this story. It's so good.
one time we do accommodations here, among other things. Like we do lots of different things. I work full time doing wellness stuff, and then we also do accommodations in our place, and just to supplement our income. And one summer someone called and said we were supposed to get these people because it's beautiful. It's tourist attractions here, as in the scenery. It's not real super busy, but I have a group and I can't have them. Can you have them? And I said, right now you're lucky, man. I got room. So they came, and my daughter and son-in-law were camping in the yard that summer. And so they were helping us out, and we do all the cooking and stuff like that. And so my daughter said, it's a beautiful day. How come they're all sitting in the living room? And I said, I don't know. She goes, Mom, have you seen what they're doing there? And I said, yeah, I think I know. And so, yeah, they were, what do they call that?
Mortar and pestle.
Yeah, but there's a name for it in the New Age kind of a thing. It's like not channeling, but it's so what they were doing was trying to figure out what the essence of this particular thing that they had. It was something from the region. It was natural, and they were trying to get the essence of it. It was hair from an animal. I'll just say that.
Oh, I see.
And they were trying to figure out what the essence was, and then what the purpose of it was going to be. And they were passing it around, and there was some chanting and stuff going on. So my daughter was like, Mom, those guys are, what they're doing in there? I said, I think so. And we didn't want to say the word, but in the area of dark magic, because it didn't have a good feel to it. And she said, they told us they wanted complete silence and they want us to be quiet. She said, I just feel like rattling pans around. And I said, shh. I said, listen, I know what you're talking about. I hear you. And I'll tell you what, I'm not sure what to do right now because I had no idea this was going to happen in my house. Okay. Give me a minute. Let me ask the Lord. So my daughter went out, and I put my hands on the counter and I said, if I would have known that these people were going to be doing this in my house, I would have never agreed to this. And he said clearly, exactly. That's why I didn't tell you. I said, excuse me? He said, no, Tracy, I want them here in your home. Mm-hmm. And I said, why? I mean, I consider this to be your house. It's not even my home. I consider this to be your home. And you're saying I should allow this in my home? I mean, it's everything that I escaped from in my life. And it's right here in my living room. And he said to me, if you pick up your cup, put your hand over it, walk into your living room, and take your hand off. What's in your cup? I said, darkness. Right. So take your hand off. Is the darkness going to be overcome? I mean, the light overcome by that darkness? He said, no, the light overcomes the darkness. I want them there because I want them to experience the light, my light. And I was like, okay. And then time went by. I was preparing food and stuff. And my daughter says, I could hear voices and I could hear some chuckling and laughing and stuff. And I could hear, oh my gosh, and I looked in the living room and they were all by a window and they had their phones out. and there was a wild cat outside that brought all her kittens up, and they were tumbling and playing, and kitten softness. I mean, who can resist? That's the cutest thing in the world. And my daughter said, "Oh, they're all up. They're all looking out the window and stuff." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "So, honey, here's the thing. We want to distract by rattling pans and saying, 'Not on my watch.'" I said, "And this is how the Lord distracts. Look at how he's distracting." So I said to the Lord, "So how do you want me to move forward?" He said, "I want you to move forward like they're having a Bible study in your living room. I want you to serve them. I want you to honor their requests. I want you to be gracious to them and love them like you would anybody." And I was like, okay. And I did. And I have to say, in the end, I remember standing in the parking lot saying goodbye. We have long goodbyes here in Canada. We walk out of the house and then down the stairs and then, goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. And then we were standing by the vehicles and there was tears and hugging and thank you so much, and there was things that transpired and conversations that were had around the table. And then I learned some things as well from them. And so that's that thing, I don't even know what that means.
That is what matters.
Well,
what did you say, Shari?
That is what matters.
The freedom and space given to others.
Mm-hmm. Unto my salvation, right? Like this is we have to admit, as North American Christians who are largely influenced by the Puritans, that there is a horrible streak of conversionism that runs through our culture. And I actually think that that's what this is all about, this polarity. Are you saved? Right? So I'm not God, right? And this is the suspension of judgment where we can say, God is the judge. God is the judge. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing, in response to your story, Tracy, the space that you share with someone in your home kind of gets into the issue of hierarchy. And I know that Jonathan Pageau has talked about the home as the heart, and the bedroom as part of the home, and then the kitchen is the place for hospitality, etc. There's a ring of concentric, and the hierarchy of things is related to what I'm hearing from your story. Is that there's some a little conflict in me about hearing it and thinking, I mean, yeah, you got to let people go and do, but at what point would you have to say, please, I know you guys are experimenting with something that you like to do, but please not here. This is important. And I'm not saying I would have done the same thing you did in that situation or not. I'm not saying that. I don't know how I would handle it because I don't like conflict or confrontation. But I'm just saying, I think there is something to what matters is giving people freedom. Yes. But I think when I heard Shari say that, it made me think, well, that's what me and Brian are disagreeing on. We want to give freedom, but we also want to give clarity of boundaries or this or that personally. Like we want to have laws and a way of being that helps us live in peace, because there's not a meshing of boundaries between people. And so whether it's in religion or what you allow to happen in your own house, or if what Brian and I talk more about is you can't tell people these days in America not to be a certain way in public, because you're just, you're imposing your beliefs upon them. And I'm maybe oversimplifying or misrepresenting Brian. You're here to speak up for yourself, but I'm just saying there's that thing of what is freedom if without boundaries, without rules, without borders. C.S. Lewis said you can't even have a family without rules. So I think the hierarchy discussion would be something to dive into. What is it to be? And Brian and me are going to get into this some with PVK on our next talk. We're going to talk about the difference between Brian and me when we talk about Christ. It seems to me I'm getting this message that there's not clarity on what we mean by that. And I think we were talking earlier today, and I kept saying, Brian, you're talking about left and right. What's the center? What are we talking about? What's the main thing? And we both agree, well, Christ, in many, many, many respects, is the center of everything. So you're either on the left side or the right side. And I'm like, well, I'm not real sure what you mean by Christ. So I think we won't know where we are or what we're talking about unless we can agree on the center or who Christ is.
Well, he is a child born to us this day. Mm-hmm. Unto us is born a child. I mean, that is that has been going through my mind for a year. Just that. Mm-hmm. Unto us is born this day in the city of David a child, which is the anointed one. That's it. That whole, which is Christ, right? Which means the anointed one.
I don't remember when that was, but I do remember you saying that a year ago on one of our streams.
It has just been going through my mind because, well, you could wrap into it Christ being born in you. You could wrap into it, if you don't become like a little child, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. There is a ton of stuff in there. The anointed one, right? The perfectly integrated human being. That's what that is. That's what that anointed one is, the Messiah. Perfectly whole, wholly integrated, right? Child. And then, of course, the seed of the woman who tramples the serpent's head, right? So, I mean...
the fact that the George MacDonald story, to me, it almost immediately struck me as this castle is human history, space, and time. This castle is the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yeah, the family of God being made family with, one...
Yeah. One older brother.
Well, not only that, just let me say this about just to scramble your eggs a little.
Scramble some eggs.
Is the castle is also you and all your parts, right?
Well, and that's what
it's the cosmos. So
back to that story, I just to be clear, I didn't. It's like I didn't walk away and make a religion out of it. It's not like, okay, put up a shingle outside and incantations, come on in, We're doing, necromancy. Here we go.
Right.
Everybody, I didn't do all that, but, and trust me, there are things that I have not allowed in my home and have said, not here. I'm sorry, you're not, but what it is for me, it's like with when I think about my story and in people in addiction, especially, okay, so dealing with that, what I like to make clear, and I think it's because it's the truth, is whether you're clean and sober or not doesn't change your value in who you are. And so I've told people, I'd like to see you, have a better quality of life. But it doesn't make you more valuable to me because you're sober. You're just as valuable to me, whether you're clean and sober or not, whether you're going into dark magic or not. As a person, you're the image and the likeness, and I'm going to treat you like that. Right. Whether you're clean and sober or puking on my carpet or not. It's going to, because your value doesn't change. And so that's what that taught me in that, is that first of all, I don't need to be afraid because light overcomes darkness. And by light, I would assume that means what I put my attention to, I make it matter, that there's that they're valued to, whether it doesn't matter what they're doing,
And
So
it seems like you're appealing to what I believe is true about Christianity and humanity. We're all universally bound in one narrative, and that's not what we learn from our American roots, which is we're a melting pot, or not just a melting pot of cultures, but now in more recent decades, we've got to learn how to get along from all different religions. And so you have things like dark magic in the public square and in our homes that that we have to deal with, not just small things, but kind of big deals together, and learn how to do it amicably. So I think you did it very amicably, and I think what you.
Well, I think it boils down to, I think we understand. I'm going to say Tracy understands, and I know I do, that nobody is evil for the sake of evil. Everyone who is what we perceive as evil
But
is
what's the
actually
dark part of the dark magic?
they're
Besides
seeking.
what's the dark part of the magic? That's my thing. You used a very extreme example in your story, so I don't want to just not say what I'm thinking, which is the dark magic part is an inviting of evil into your space, and that story sort of.
But the only thing that dispels the darkness is the light, and that was also part of Tracy's story, right? So
yes.
Well, and so in my mind, if you want to get technical, and I can't really get away from Christianese because I don't know how else to put it, but because I feel that this house was that we're a steward of what we've been given. I mean, my husband built this house with his own hands, so it was built by God and by the means that he provided for us, and we have dedicated this land to him, and we have had no end to battles in darkness, with darkness. And I can tell you lots of those stories too.
So it wasn't.
So it wasn't
as unfamiliar and threatening.
It wasn't not familiar to me, but I wasn't familiar in saying I didn't know. I would have never invited someone. So he said, "That's right. You didn't invite them. I did." And I'm like, so it's this thing where I just feel like I'm starting to figure him out. And all of a sudden he goes, and I'm like,
and I don't have that kind of conversation with God either on a regular basis. So that's new to me to hear someone talk about it like that. But it's it's just we have different personalities, and my personality in the sense of how I feel like in the past I've been afraid of confrontation. I couldn't confront someone even when my deepest convictions were being trampled upon.
Right.
That's something I'm recovering from. And that's what I heard from your story was, if that happened to me, I would have to say something, and my light would hopefully be the kind of light that says, I love you, but not in this house, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Well, I mean,
I
think we should be aware that there is a masculine feminine conversation going on here too, right? So men are, in my opinion, wired for boundaries. Right? They're there to protect that which is most important to them. And so I think for
men, so I wasn't also trying to make it an issue, but in the conversation here, I
understand.
I wasn't hearing that either.
No.
Good.
I actually like your feedback.
Yeah,
it's good. I guess I don't know why I'm coming to this, but I remember older people saying, the older people in my life right now, we have elders here in their 90s, and the longer I'm around them, the more I realize how quiet they get, and I realize because they know that they don't have a lot to say anymore because you just kind of feel like you don't know as much as you thought you did.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lesson for me, because I was the dig the foxhole, get your ammo, and you load up your weapons, and you hear a rustle in the trees, Tracy Tanis, you know from where you've been, you don't sit around and wonder if it's the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Blast, and because that's the kind of person I was like, okay, just give me the stuff. I will, not on my watch, not this time, I remember one of these visuals I had, I was doing that thing, and I saw the Lord go, whoa, hey, it's me. I was like, oh crap, I could have killed the Lord and Savior, like,
Not you, Lord. You don't have to stick up your dukes.
And he was, but what he was saying to me in that is that you what you think you don't know, Tracy. And so that's kind of been my journey so many times. I'm like, it's that old proverb, right? About I can't remember the name of it, but I know I've heard people bring it up over, my son is has to go to war. Oh, that's bad. But my son doesn't have to go to war. Oh, that's good. But it's because he broke his leg. Oh, that's bad. No, but because he broke his leg, now he doesn't have to do this. Oh, that's good. Yeah, but now our farm is going to, oh, that's bad. But that's okay because, that's been the story of my life. It's like, do I really know? Really, yeah. Anyway.
I do on this channel, I do a podcast with Jeremy Firth called Lives of the Saints. And every Tuesday we cover a saint. And we've been doing it for about a year. And the reason is because I knew if I didn't start a podcast, I would never read the Lives of the Saints. So I'm just like, got to help me out here, Jeremy, because I really want to know. And one of the things that stands out to me, and all of them are different. And getting back to, we haven't touched on it. I don't think we have time. I think we're gonna have to go soon. But the idea of morality, a lot of the stories of the lives of the saints would be what we might call immoral. Like there's a saint who lies, right? Someone asks him where the murderer went, and he says he doesn't know. And meanwhile, he gave him some food and sent him on his way, right? And there's this really great story. I heard it recently from Nathan Jacobs. I think he told it on John Here's channel or something. That he did it was a automata thing that he told these 3 stories. And there was this saint, I can't remember what his name was, and I'm going to get this story's going to be really short and sweet because I can't remember all the details. But there was a beggar. So this monk was living as a hermit, and all year long he'd make baskets. And then he would take them once a year to this market, and he'd get enough food for himself for the year, what he needed, and the rest of the money he gave to the poor. Okay. And he goes to he's on his way to this market, and there's this beggar on the road, and he's lame, and he says, I want to get to the town. Can you help me? So he throws the beggar on his back and got all his wares and drags himself to this city, puts the guy down, goes and sells all his wares. And the beggar says, he buys what he needs for himself, and then he goes to give money to the poor, and the beggar says to him something like, I want to have some of that meat from that man's stand over there. And the monk's like, okay, but that's like really expensive meat. He's like, yeah, I want some of it. And then the monk's like, okay. So he takes a third of his earnings and he buys the guy some meat, and he hands it to him, and he goes, there you go. In the end, this beggar basically takes all of his money, keeps asking him for something more, but I want the best, but I want the best, but I want the best. And then in the end, he says as the monk's leaving with no money and no wares, he says, can you carry me back to where you found me on the road? And so he does, right? And then it turns out that the man was Christ. That's how the story goes, right?
Mm.
And he realizes it when he drops him on the road, kind of thing. He's like, it's you, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole exercise was unto his salvation. And I think that's what we have to remember. And I'm no good at it either. Like, you know, I'm not good at it. I mess up all the time. I make wrong judgments. I get angry. I have a lot of resentment, a lot of bitterness, lots of childhood trauma that comes bubbling up at the wrong times.
Mm.
And, you know, one of the things that happened to me recently, I was coming in the sliding glass doors here from doing my chores. It was a beautiful day. Everything was fine. I was happy. Opened the door, stepped one foot in, which is actually just thinking about it, was kind of symbolic, because I was half outside, half inside, right? I was divided. And this voice says, "You're such an asshole, you idiot," in my head, just out of the blue. And I'm like, I am. And then I realized, no, I'm not. I'm not actually. I'm a child of the living God. I'm doing my best.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking for forgiveness. And then I said, you know, go back to where you came from.
Yeah.
Get lost.
That's where being confrontational really helps.
But no, believe me, I was not confrontational my whole life, Brad. But what that wanted to do was divide me from myself, was disintegrate me, disintegrate me. And that's what's happening.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to illustrate, that the thing that's happening inside of us is happening around us.
Yeah.
And we contribute to it when we allow ourselves to be disintegrated, right?
And that's what happens when in the story. I mean, we could end on Tolkien. We started with MacDonald, but when Gollum is standing, when he becomes a good Gollum for several chapters in the movie, I guess it's the second movie. He's good. He has a fight with himself first,
Right.
and the way he kind of gets free is he says, "Go away," talking to his alter ego or whatever, and don't come back. So I guess that's the way of what you're saying, integration.
Well, the thing, actually, what I said was, that's a lie. That's what I said. And it was gone. And the reason I knew it was a lie was because it was dividing me against myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lie does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm going to give everybody, I just want to say, I'm just going to give everybody a chance for last thoughts, and then we'll close it out here soon. So, because we've been going for 2 hours and 18 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll start and say that the lie part, the recognition of a truth that comes from what's revealed in Christ about God is just as much a truth about the human being in each one of us. And I think you nailed it here with the kind of statements that are uttered, or the kind of things that are believed, that divide people and divide the self. There's value in recognizing that the truth is, I'm a whole person. I'm a son or daughter of God, and there is no division that's fundamental inside of me.
Right.
It may be my experience, and it may surprise you, like when you're stepping in from through the plate glass door, and it's just a thought that comes to you. I appreciate what you're saying, that you saw it as a lie. And then Tracy, that fundamental moment for you of just pausing and say, I'm going to ask the Lord what to do here, so you could actually, make a decision and address what your daughter was bringing up to you about what was going on in your home. That seems like you heard truth from, out of the blue in that case. I mean, you asked for it, but I think a lot of us don't expect to hear something so clear. So I appreciate hearing your stories about across your lifetime about your conversation with God and how surprising his words to you have been. And appreciate y'all giving us the opportunity to be here and just enjoying the conversation and get to know each other better and touch on some of these topics. It's been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that. It's been a good experience to be on your channel, Shari, and to have the kind of flow of conversation that we've had. It's a little bit different when it's been me and Brian and Paul Vander Klay, and we've talked to Nate Heil one other time on the video, but the quality of the talks changes with each new person that shows up on the screen with Brian and me, and it just really deepens things to have you two as sisters, and who opened your homes up to us in this way in your lives to share the time. So I've really enjoyed it too. I like the relaxed flow of the conversation, and starting it out with the story was great.
Yeah.
And
next time I'll do my homework a little better.
It's interesting to me to hear what y'all say, that the takeaway in each case for each video even is, we love each other. Brad and I have these differences that seem to get a lot of attention. And I will say, some heard our third conversation with Paul Vander Klay and wanted to know, what do y'all actually disagree on? It seems like y'all are being way too general, and we want to know what the actual differences are so we can decide, I guess, if they matter, or if we, experience the same differences or whatever.
Mm.
And so I think there's a time and a place for that as well. I guess when we get back on with Paul in a third conversation, we will kind of have a pinpointed topic if we're doing our job. And even then, it's a good faith conversation done in that epoche of, the second one, whichever one.
Well, it really helps to have
ataraxy.
The
suspension of judgment as in waiting on the Lord.
Yes. And that's where the division is not actually a division. Right. The division is a difference, and Christ is the ground of our differences as well.
The big breakthrough in my estimation is that we're actually talking to other people and with other people besides just each other. Well, that's been the one thing we've done is always talked together, just each other, and that's where I feel like I've made the mistake of not inviting others into it.
No, it's really courageous. I think it's like, I applaud you both for that, because that's hard to let people in on that kind of intimate relationship, and but I think that's if you were living in a more traditional community like 100 years ago, that would be happening. Everyone would know. Okay?
Yeah.
Everyone in your community would know, and they'd all have something to say. Some of them would side with you, Brad. Some of them would side with Brian, and some of them would tell you to quit yapping and get your shovel,
That's true.
So.
Yeah, what matters would rise to the surface based on what the community values.
And they would help
probably
you
wouldn't be these things.
They would help you through it. Right. And unfortunately we've kind of lost that, but this, this is serving as a community. And I think that's great, actually.
Yeah, that's what I say. I feel a little, self-conscious to bring up that. We already said that today, but because who cares, what the twins are talking about. But in another sense, I'm thinking it's it's good for us to be talking to other people, but there's something very universal about this situation that
Well, you know what I was
can help.
thinking? Symbolism happens, okay?
Ah,
When I saw you guys on the screen, I was like, symbolism happens. Right. You could be twins and still be divided from each other. And I mean, that's the second story. That's the second fall of mankind in the scriptures, Cain and Abel. Right?
the second fall. Can you name what?
Cain and Abel.
Oh, Cain and Abel. Yeah. Yep.
Cain and Abel, right? The two brothers who murders the other. You know, it's terrible.
Now there's a bunch of stories like that.
Tracy, did you have a last words?
Oh, I just really enjoyed it, and yeah, I want to. In our community, we hold up our hands to my sister Shari for inviting me and for maintaining this beautiful space for people, because I dip in and out over the years just listening, and I've seen her impact, and I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for the people that she loves, and I'm grateful for the people who love her, and the opportunity to be part of it. I'm mostly a learner. I have my 2 cents, but
I'm always thrilled when Tracy joins because she has lots of wisdom.
Thanks. Thanks. Well, I consider my sister to be my sage and my muse, so I'm grateful for her. And then just listening to you guys work it out loud, you know, it's the best, honestly. Yeah. It's reality, and it's the way it's supposed to be. And just working it out loud, having that internal dialogue out loud, you know, it's nothing that we haven't heard either. Like, and that's the other thing that I think is important to normalize it, is to say it's not always good, but it's very normal, and it's nothing you haven't already thought of. It's not nothing that you haven't already done. Some of us.
What's not normal?
Well, the idea of just the feeling that there's a line that's been drawn, and we have to make a decision on who's on what side, and if you're not, then I care about you, so I got to pull you over onto this side, and no, I care about you, so therefore I'm staying on this side, and you know, working that all out loud. It's important. It's natural. It's good, and I don't think it's ever going to stop, nor should it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. My favorite phrase from our 3 conversations was letting each other be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot in that, because it does take you away from sort of this either objective or I don't know, obscure sort of standard that splits you, divides you, and focuses on the relationship and the snapshot of time, as well as the snapshot of depth that's actually there, that we really rarely ever get to with our words. But just the presence can really be something that changes both parties.
Well, being I remember hearing that and saying it at times to my kids, you know, do you want to be right, or do you want to have a relationship? You know, because you know, and I think that probably the crux of that has to do with pride, right? And then pride goes before a fall.
I was thinking when you said that, Brian, I was thinking the really hard part, and I know this from my own experience, is letting someone be right.
Yeah.
That one hurts. That hurts.
Can be wrong.
That's the one I've had to practice. I mean, I can let them be wrong. That's easy. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Okay. But letting them be right? Uh-oh. You know.
Okay, Tracy, Shari, I gotta go now.
Okay, well, I'm gonna sign off by reading a poem that I wrote recently. So I'm gonna toot my own horn here, but I think it's great because it's it's about transformation.
Mm.
And I wrote this on December the 18th when I was collecting boughs before Christmas. I was going to make some floral arrangements in the house, and I was out in the woods cutting limbs off trees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote, the name of the poem is I Found Myself.
Mm.
I found myself asking you for permission. I was astounded at my words. They flowed as if unbidden from some deep well of knowledge that I was unaware of. I begged your forgiveness for lopping off your limb. I would expect the same if someone lopped off my limb. I thanked you. I remembered the days when I never thought twice about such things. The days I cut down whole trees without asking permission, without asking forgiveness, without gratitude. When did the change come? I have no memory of it. I do not see the difference in time between then and now. Yet everything is different. Everything matters. I became without my knowledge. I was transformed in the twinkling of an eye. I am someone I never consented to be. I was dragged through the infidelity of an ungrateful life to this moment. This moment when I unwittingly encountered myself doing something I never knew how to do. I never knew why I should do it. I walk beside myself. I don't know my own companion, my companion who shows wisdom, who shows me who I really am. I am amazed and confused. Confused and amazed, I stand in awe, and you flow through as if a portal was opened and you stepped through, and I can't remember where I was when it happened or what I was doing. I never opened it. You did. I am humbled. I am grateful. I am not even myself.
Mm.
I become without my knowledge, and without my consent, you have transformed me.
Mm. Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you
Wow.
for reading that.
Well, you embody hospitality. Shari wrote
Oh.
remember she wrote that thing when at the thing, and she read the thing, remember?
Obviously.
Sanctuary.
Very detailed
Southeast
oriented, so be patient. Yeah.
I
Anyways,
do remember.
it was about hospitality, and that's something we do here. I know John and I, we perform and sing, and my children are musicians. And I remember saying to my husband, it doesn't matter what we do. When one of our girls comes up and joins us, people are so captivated by family, that familiar thing that happens with voices and harmony and blending and and the struggle of it all, because we're not good at practicing. We don't always get along.
Well, in order to get harmony, you got to have discord. Sorry.
Okay.
Just saying.
Another little rabbit trail. But I see that,
Thanks for saying that.
and I feel like you've invited us into your home, into your family, and to me, that's hospitality.
It is.
And hospitality, I stand at the door and knock.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a blessing to me and an encouragement, because sometimes, like I said a while ago, I wonder who really cares about some of this, or how does it matter to anyone else? But what you're talking about is to me the goal of anything I want to do in public and for others, is to offer that space and that hospitality. And it's why I really like what you were saying, Tracy, in your story about your home, offering hospitality and making space. Both of y'all have come back to that. And hospitality is, I think, the key to this polarity that is dividing families, communities.
Yeah.
It's got to be broken through with that.
Well, and that's what
Offering of
everyone's
peace.
longing for. How many times do you hear that on these kind of chats? And then when I was in person at the thing.
Wait, you were there?
Was I there? I was there, right? North Carolina. Was that the estuary one?
You went to that, Tracy?
Yeah.
Yeah, she came with me.
Oh, man.
Yeah. My sister invited me and drugged me along,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it.
I went to wait,
You went to
Midwest
this one?
UA.
I was there too, right, Sherry? We were there.
No, we were at
No,
North
we were not
Estuary.
there. We weren't in.
We went to the North Estuary.
Oh
and
yeah, I went to Midwest UA, and Brian was at Southeast UA with Shari.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we exchanged a few words, but we didn't have time to talk.
Yeah. I think I remember seeing you there, Brian. And but yeah, I appreciate that. That, like I said, everyone's longing for that belonging. Everyone's longing for a family. You know, I mean, that's the whole thing with
It's called having a place at the table, my friends.
having a place at the table. And I remember one time I was with a beautiful woman, and sitting in her dark little cabin sipping tea. I was very young. My children were playing with her children, and we live hours on a gravel road, and there was a vehicle bounced over, and I thought, this car doesn't belong here. And people got out with suits on and came and knocked on the door, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like hundreds of miles from the nearest town. And the lady went to the door and basically said, you know, in no uncertain terms, off you go. No, thank you. And when
was it Jehovah's Witness?
I don't want to say who or what. We're just gonna, you know.
Okay.
And anyways,
They're amazing. They're amazing.
well, you have to hand it
They
to
got
them.
Land Rovers in
I'll
Egypt.
tell you. No, it wasn't a Land Rover. I don't know who was paying for the tires. I wanted to say, I hope you're getting compensated for this. But anyway, and then she came and sat down, and she said, oh, I can't stand it when they, you know. And I said, so why don't you have them in? You've invited me in. Why don't you have them in? Why don't you let them come in? She said, because they don't drink my tea. They don't play with my kids. And then I thought right away, behold, I stand at the door and knock. Anyone opens the door to me, I will come in with him. I will
sup with
you, and I will eat with you at your table, and I'll be with your family, and I'll hang out because of hospitality, right?
Yeah.
It's that whole thing. It's so huge of what he desires in us is what you guys are modeling in this conversation, is to have a relationship and to do it with family. And so, you know, I have a little plaque on my wall. No, I don't actually. I want to paint it though. And it says, it says hospitality. The definition of hospitality is making people feel at home when you wish they were. I'm just kidding.
And you find out after doing that for 5 minutes that you really don't mind their company.
I wish they were. I wish they were home. But I'm making them feel at home. But I'm just kidding. No, I want to leave on that note. But yeah, I want to thank you for that, because that's what I'm getting from all of this. And
that's a really good point, Trace. Thanks for bringing that up. Really good.
Yes, it is.
Well, thanks for hosting us.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna sign off the stream. Just stay on the stream for a minute. Thank you, everybody who watched and joined us.
Hi, Joy.